How much to reduce salt when using salted butter in place of unsalted butter? I normally don't keep unsalted butter on hand since I use it so seldom. So when a recipe calls for salt and unsalted butter among its ingredients, would it be alright to use salted butter and reduce the amount of salt? And if so, by how much should the salt be reduced? In other words, how much salt is typically contained in a tablespoon, ounce or gram of salted butter?
Depending on brand, it is approximately 1¼ teaspoons per pound US, or a little more than 1/4 of a teaspoon per stick, 4 ounces. For most applications, yes, it is fine to substitute and adjust. You can just adjust the salt to taste step of your recipe in many cases. There are a very few uses, such as yeast-raised dough, where you want to be more precise. I would not use salted butter for a yeast dough by preference, but if I had to, I would calculate the amount of salt to remove from the other ingredients based on this ratio: 1¼ teaspoon salt, 16 ounces butter. If you're in the US, labeling laws actually make it pretty easy to know exactly how much salt is in your butter, and yes, it varies by brand. Salt is sodium chloride, it's 40% sodium by weight. Land O'Lakes salted butter, my go-to brand, has 90 milligrams of sodium per tablespoon. That means it has 225 milligrams of salt per tablespoon, or 1.8 grams per stick, 7.2 grams per pound. Table salt weighs 5.7 grams per teaspoon, so Land O'Lakes salted butter contains 1.26 teaspoon of salt per pound of butter. I always bake with unsalted butter, but just now I am making a brioche according to a recipe that will take as much as 6 ounces of butter in one loaf. That's a stick and a half, a boatload of butter. I wanted to make it special and use a highly rated, European-style cultured butter. I've got the butter, but it was only available salted. That's okay. This brand has 55 milligrams sodium per tablespoon. That's 660 milligrams sodium for all of the butter in the recipe. 660 milligrams sodium equals 1,650 milligrams salt, sodium chloride, or 1.65 grams. The recipe calls for 3.3 grams of salt to be added with the unsalted butter, so I'll add, strangely enough, half of that, 1.65 grams.